Right, let's get straight into the leading story this hour. As South Africa grapples with high unemployment, the need to address economic growth has become even more urgent. One key to this growth is the international competitiveness of local industries. Experts have called for South Africa to boost the adoption of international and local standards to enhance economic growth and competitiveness on the global stage. To expand on this, we're joined by Managing Director of JC Auditors, Naidoo. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. As we look at the poor state of the country's economic growth, certainly today being Workers' Day, a lot has been said about the impact of a stagnant economy and the high unemployment rate in the country. What would you say are some of the solutions when it comes to the local standards that need to be set in enabling economic growth?
Yes, good evening, Impo. So I think it's really important to know that we compete in a global marketplace. And the whole point of having international standards is so that we can facilitate global trade. And of course, in our context, in order for us to meet the demands of export economies, in order for businesses to grow and to fulfill on the demands of these consumers on the international stage, we need to operate our businesses in a highly efficient, high-quality driven manner. And that can only be achieved, we've seen globally, by implementing standards that have baseline requirements that talk to business strategy, that talk to operations, that talk to service provision at the highest level. So in order for the economy to be stimulated and to compete globally, we need these fundamentals to be in place. And of course, standards, international standards, provide a framework on which to build the sustainable practices into our businesses and the economy at large.
So what are the challenges that come with this? I mean, embracing the standards and perhaps even seeing tangible outcomes is one thing, but insofar as the level of business, a small business owner who, of course, has their sights on huge successes, but of course there would be some red tape, perhaps financing issues. What would you say are some of the big factors and the loopholes in achieving these local and international standards?
Look, I think, one of the big things we've seen, even in the new entrants to the market in the SME sector, is, I think, the lack of an understanding of how to build sustainable practices into one's business. You know, we do understand for an entrepreneur coming into the market, it is difficult. As you've mentioned, funding is always a challenge. Access to market opportunities are there. But the nature of an entrepreneur is such that he or she will find an opportunity. But once they do that, how do they then begin to have practices in their business that helps them to scale? And we're talking here about things like marketing of the business. How do they ensure that there's consistent processes in place, that the quality of these processes provide an assurance that the product or service meets the need of the consumer? And the whole point of standards, or one of the major points of any standard, is to deliver on the needs of the consumer. So having processes in place for the new entrants to market that provide consistent assurance to the customer or the consumer is an absolute necessity if these small businesses are to scale and become big businesses.
How would you say South Africa fares if you had to conduct a comparative analysis on South Africa and other countries we compete against the global economy?
The one thing about us South Africans, we are extremely resilient. If you look at some of our challenges, energy, socioeconomic factors, the crime rate, unemployment, in spite of all this, we, I believe, have amazing business people, amazing resources in our country. I think we still have a long way to go to really take it to the next level. And some of the challenges relate to skills development. They relate to the ability of companies to take full advantage of opportunities that are there. So I think whilst we have resilience and we've got some really, important fundamentals in place, we still need to develop our skills. We need to improve on our innovation, and this is where standards comes in.
Yeah.
As international standards all talk to building innovative practices, continual improvement, and in that way develop a framework for maximizing any opportunities in the market.
Yesterday, in fact, around this time, we heard President Cyril Ramaphosa giving the keynote address at the Black Business Council Summit, the dinner, and we heard him highlighting the potential of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as a vehicle for further growth and also pledging government support to help companies harness this opportunity. In that, what stands out for you, and perhaps how do standards play a role in ensuring that the opportunities are taken?
Okay, well, what the President was mentioning is an exciting initiative for all of us, but it talks to tariff barriers. But we also need to remember there are non-tariff barriers. And this is exactly where standards come into play. How do we facilitate a more efficient, seamless cross-border transport, for example, in the logistics space? How do we ensure that we fully optimize the abilities of the ports to get our products to the export markets? So whilst the agreement is very exciting and bodes well, and we all are excited and we should be, I still believe that we need to look at when the markets do open, and they will, I'm sure. How do we take full advantage of that by having our businesses in a position where we are, so to speak, ready to pounce and take full advantage of the export markets?
How do you think a small business can strive to attain this world-class status? How should they be operating insofar as the level of a business, irrespective of the size? If a small business owner is watching us interacting and thinking, okay, I'd also like to become a world-class business, but of course there are certain levels and tiers.
Right. So the interesting thing about the international standards, they don't make a distinction between, a one-man business versus a multinational. The standard prescribes specific requirements. And if you look at, let's take an example of the ISO 9001, which is the world's most popular standard that is aimed at promoting quality products and service. So for a small business, it will be, does one have sustainable policies in place? Is there adequate skills development within the organization? To what extent is training taking place? Are there objectives and targets that are being quantified and measured? Is the business fully expanding its market opportunities by using a structured framework? Continual improvement is a big requirement. So all these, so standards written so that it has various clauses or elements. Each element provides a framework or guidance, and regardless of the size of the business will apply the framework in context to its size and operating environment. So I certainly believe, and it has been proven over the years, that standards enable efficiency, profitability, and sustainability in both SMEs and in the multinationals as well.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Managing Director of JC Auditors, Oliver Naidoo, there, giving us some practical examples on the solutions that are needed to tackle the high unemployment and, of course, the need to address the economic growth that has become even more urgent. And, of course, some of those factors on Workers' Day, just highlighting some of the solutions. We continue, of course, to bring you more news as